Hey, how's everybody doing? I want to show you guys a fly that was pretty successful for me this last summer when the Trico hatch was out. And I think it's a fly that people don't always think to use, but it's a Sunken Trico. And there's a number of ways you can use this. You can fish it off of a nymph rig and just maybe short leash it below the surface. You can also take it if you got somebody who wants to dry fly fish, is tie a buzz ball or a big Griffith's gnat, some kind of a cluster trico pattern, something you can see really well, and then fish this right below it. So yeah, with that said, let me show you the materials that I'm going to tie with. It's an Umpqua hook size of U105, and I'm tying it in an 18. It's a 1X short hook. And so this fly gives you a little bit more gap, and when you get to flies this small, I try to fish the biggest fly that I can get away with, because keeping fish on with 22s and 24s is really tough to do. It's a better match for what they're doing, but sometimes in rivers like the Missouri or any place that gets really matted up with flies, they're not looking for a single bug all the time anyway. But what the Sunken Trico does for me is, if you've got somebody who wants to fish a dry fly, yeah, you can put that buzz ball, that big Griffith's gnat, or something that's a cluster pattern, and drop this like 6 inches below it, and literally you'll think they're eating your big cluster, and they'll come up and they'll eat this pattern sunken, and it will be just like your dry fly fishing, even though they're eating the nymph. And this wide gap hook is gonna help. So I'm also using for the tail some white microfibets, and I'll just run through the materials real quick here so that everybody can see it. I'm using Swiss straw for the wing, and this stuff is pretty darn thick, but if you take it and spread it apart in clear, you can get a really nice wing out of it that, oh boy, it really looks super close to what the natural is. And then I'm using a hairline Trico color, and I'm using a tungsten bead, which helps get it down a little bit, and it's a nymph hook that I'm using on that U105, and so I'm using a 2mm bead with a size 18 is my go-to. So with that said, here we go. Alright, here we go. Sunken Trico, size 18. Got a 2mm bead in there, and I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but I've got 16/0 thread for these small flies. It's a Vivis, helps to keep your thread wraps as small as possible. So tails are going to be my first order of materials to add, and I'm just looking for 2 or 3 tails. I don't get too picky with the number, but I do kind of want them to line up, one not being longer or shorter than the other. So alright, I think we got that, and I'm just gonna lay this on top of the hook, so kind of pinch knotting it on there, and gonna get the length about right there. And I'm just gonna color the hook. I'll trim this out, and then I'm gonna stand those tails up a little bit. And this is the body of the thread, so I should say it's a dark brown Vivis for that body color, and it really matches the the Trico dubbing that I'm gonna use a little bit later. So they don't stand up, sometimes I'll throw a thread wrap in there, and I want to split them. I'm just going to use my magnifying glass. When I get to these really small flies like this, it can be a little tricky to see this small stuff like this. So alright, so I've got my tails split now. I think you could probably tie it without the tails, to be honest. I don't know that the fish are that picky on it. Alright, so I'm just going to grab some of this Swiss straw now, and I'm going to just cut out a piece for the wing. And I usually cut more than I expect to use, because because I want to shape the wings with it. And I'm just going to get a wrap over the top, hopefully. It can be sometimes a little bit funky with this, but once I get one wrap in there, then I kind of move it around a little bit to get the wings, and then I'm going to figure 8 a few times just to make sure this thing is locked in. This really is a guide fly. Super easy to tie, but this baby's a code cracker. Alright, so just a little pinch of dubbing, you don't need much. Right. And I'm just going to cover the wing area there and build the body up a little bit. Okay, and that's my... I'm going to throw 2 whip finishes in there. I don't throw a lot of glue usually on my dry flies. I do double whip finish. And then last I'm going to do is I'm just going to shape those wings. Those are too long and they need to be maybe a little bit more naturally shaped. So I'm going to cut each one. Typically mayfly wings I think of as being maybe the shank of the hook in length. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to round the edges off. Hopefully give it a little bit more of a natural look. And you gotta have sharp scissors. Just that little piece there doesn't seem to want to go for me. Alright, there it is. The Sunken Trico. Super simple to tie. It's gonna sink just below the surface, and boy, it is a code cracker. It works a lot of times when other bugs don't. They'll be less intimidated to come up and eat it on the. They don't have to eat it on top of the surface, and this will do it for you. So, yeah, tie some up. They really work, and good luck out there.